Secretary of State Mike Pompeo wrapping up his first trip to the Middle East after sending a warning to Iran that the U.S. is ready to pull out of the nuclear deal. And he's not the only one of President Trump's team sending a stern message to nations around the world.
If, in fact, Kim has made a strategic decision to give up his entire nuclear weapons program, then I think deciding on the place and the date should be fairly easy.
We remain deeply concerned about Iran's dangerous escalation of threats to Israel and the region, and Iran's ambition to dominate the Middle East remains.
So is this the foreign policy that America needs right now? Here now to debate that is Media DC political analyst Ron Meyer and Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright. Guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Morning. Thank you.
Ron, we're going to start with you. After 8 years of relative softness as far as foreign policy and a lot of predictability, I think, this is completely different. I mean, nobody knows what the president's going to do at any given time, and he doesn't seem to be shy about starting a fight. What do you say?
Well, it's tough to deny that it's working. Whether you look at trade or these different negotiations like trying to reopen the Iran deal, there's no doubt that we're going to be in a better position at the end of the day. The Iran deal obviously wasn't the best deal for the United States. And I think Europe's going to be open to looking at it and trying to see if it could be made stronger. And so how is that not better for the United States? If you look at trade, obviously the negotiations have only gone our way. Yes, there were tariffs, and yes, we're seeing some costs in the short term. But if you look at countries like South Korea, they've already changed their trade laws to be more friendly to the United States. And we already hear what's happening with China in those negotiations. And so if you look at trade, if you look at these other foreign policy conflicts, and then obviously the elephant in the room with North Korea, I mean, things are more hopeful there than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And so when you have Pompeo and Bolton, who are hawks, and they're out there being aggressive, it's sort of like it's a good balance to Trump, because I think he's a non-interventionist at heart. But when you have people who are aggressive out there, it puts you in a great negotiating position.
Antoine, I want to stick with North Korea for a second. You know, Republicans are quick to take a lot of credit for, and the president to take a lot of credit for where we are in this negotiation. Democrats, though, say that we've been promised this before and had, you know, the rug pulled out from under us. But there has been some progress made. I mean, obviously, Kim Jong-un is at the table, and he walked across the DMZ last week. That was something.
Yeah, there's been progress made, but again, we're not across the finish line yet. And so oftentimes this administration and this president will want to raise their hand in victory before we even get to the finish line. I think we have to be very strategic and think very long-term to all of our approach when it comes to this issue of foreign policy, because this will supersede Trump. This will supersede his administration. This will supersede a Republican-controlled Congress. This will supersede partisan politics in this country. And so I think we have to be very strategic and very smart about any foreign policy decision we make going forward.
And as far as Iran goes, I mean, you do have some Democrats, like we have Chris Coons on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace saying that, you know, that there is an idea for a better deal on the Iran nuclear deal. Democrats admitting that that deal wasn't that great, that we could make that a lot better.
Yeah, of course we could have made it a lot better, but I think we have to get out of this notion that of the redo and undo policies for soundbite and for tweet purposes. I think we have to really think long term and be strategic about what we do.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that adding some strings attached to the Iran deal, like saying, hey, we should have real inspectors instead of just Iran telling us that things are okay. I mean, I think getting things like that, like you said, Senator Coons is for that. If you look at North Korea, I mean, it's hard to hear Antoine say, well, it's like, well, we don't know if this is going to work out great or not. The country should be genuinely excited about this. We should be hopeful for peace. If we solve the Korean conflict, if this administration helps solve the Korean conflict, that will be a monumental and historic contribution. And it's something that I agree with Antoine. It should go beyond partisan lines. And we should be rooting for this, not rooting against it just because we don't like the president, right?
Let me cut that off right there. Antoine, I want to go to you on a new subject here because we got to get it in. We're talking about the media, Democrats giving the president credit as far as some of the accomplishments he has had. Antoine, you say that the president kind of gets in his own way as far as getting any pats on the back. Explain why.
Well, he does, because as soon as it's time for him to get credit where he's partially due, he gets distracted by a tweet or some other matter, and so the attention gets away from where he's earned credit. And here's what I believe. I'm not one of those people who believe you should get credit for an assignment until it's complete. And although the Republican Party and the right-wing media wants to do that, I've never lived by that concept.
Yeah. Ron, you know, the president's personality for a lot of people can be a lot to digest. But there have been some great strides made. I mean, I think a lot of people love the idea of taking back some of of our rights in some of these trade deals and actually making these deals fair. It's very refreshing after all these years of losing in some of these deals, right?
It's so funny, you know, the Democrats attack they can't attack the policy, right? Because the tax cuts are working, this foreign policy stuff's working out pretty well.
Tax cuts are not working, Ron.
They attack, well, but so you have to attack his personality, but then when his personality is actually helping us on the foreign policy front, there's no doubt that without his personality, erratic or not, that's the reason why we're in the position we are in with North Korea, is because they are afraid of Trump, and that's one of the reasons why they're coming to the negotiating table. Same thing on trade, on why these countries are coming to us. So without that personality and without this approach, there's no doubt that we could not be where we are without this style of presidency.
Yeah.
Ron, North Korea has been here before, so let's not, again, be fooled that they will not take the position they've taken before when they've been in this position before.
And we don't know. Guys, we got to wrap it up there, but we certainly are taking a different approach, and we're seeing some kind of progress. We shall see where it ends. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on this morning.